welcome. I want to say welcome again and thank you again to our sponsors, Strongbridge Consulting and Walsh Construction Company, and to all of our volunteers and our board who are here today. So that's what our Hope Lights community is all about, this wonderful community that we're trying to build and the problems we're trying to solve. We have about 10,000 children in the foster care system and 53,000 children who are living with relatives who are not their birth parents. So people like their aunts and uncles, their grandparents, siblings, all who need our support. And of the children who are in foster and kinship care, about 2,800 children are eligible for or waiting for adoption at any given point in time. And not even half of those kids will become adopted or find their forever family. So that's what we're trying to help solve for and help to facilitate. It's a big undertaking, but it's worthwhile, and we need all of your support to help make it happen. And that's why you're here today. We have a very innovative and proven solution in the Hope Lights community. It's a multi-generational neighborhood that provides kids in foster care with the forever families that they need, people who will love them, who will guide them through life, who will help them understand what life is all about and how to put one foot in front of the other. It's also a community that provides the kind of support that the adoptive families and the relatives who are raising these traumatized children need on a daily basis. So they're provided with services that are like mental health services, and they're also provided with practical support from the people who live within the community, as well as some outside providers who we'll be bringing in. And the other piece of the pie is the seniors. So the seniors make up the other portion of the multi-generational community. And the seniors obviously are a very strong and important component of the neighborhood. And the fact that they invest their time at a time in life when society tends to maybe marginalize seniors is a great use of a resource that we have in our country, and we need to take advantage of that. So I think that before we get much further along, I want to share with you the delightful speaker that I'm about to introduce. Clarissa is a woman who lives in a multi-generational community, much like the one we are trying to create here in Washington State. In fact, Generations of Hope and Hope Meadows is the neighborhood that she lives in, is the inspiration for how we got started. And they were the first such community in the United States to take this idea and really create the idea of an intergenerational community that supports people who need the help that we can all give as a community. And in this case, it's kids in foster care who need permanency and who need stability. So I'd like to welcome Clarissa Moramarco to the stage. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, there we go. Hi, good morning. Thank you, Helen. It's just really such a privilege to be here. I can't think of anything I love to talk about more than my life at Hope Meadows, and especially in front of a group of kindred spirits like yourselves. I know that we're all here for the same reason. We care about the needs of our kids, all children. We want to make a difference. We want to ensure that seniors have the opportunity to lead purposeful lives in a community of like-minded people, and that parents are fully supported. Can y'all hear me okay in the back there? You good? Okay, great. I came to live at Hope Meadows, which is in a little farming community in Rantoul, Illinois. Our community is surrounded by cornfields. And I remember when I left San Diego to live there 3 years ago, my girlfriends gave me a going away party, and they called it the Goodbye to Clarissa, from palm trees to cornfields. And it was really sweet. And the way that it happened was I had been researching ways to live a meaningful retirement, or maybe semi-retirement. And I had been researching for about 2 years every intentional community that met my standards. And that meant it had to be a purposeful community, not just a community of people that wanted to build a structure. It had to have a purpose greater than ourselves. And I find that when we do have a purpose greater than ourselves, magical things can happen. And so I've been researching, and even though there's over 1,000 communities now, and even a directory dedicated to intentional communities, I was still looking. So nothing clicked, and what I'm about to tell you may sound like an accident, but I don't believe in life-altering decisions being accidents, and I'll tell you why. I still hadn't found the community, and one day my husband and I, of that time, my late husband and I, were traveling. And I had run out of reading materials, and he was a real New York Times reader. He was from Brooklyn, and I never read the Times, but I said, and he did all the crossword puzzles. I said to him, hey, Federico, I've run out of things to read. Could you, do you have anything? He goes, just a minute. He looks through the New York Times, and he pulls out the lifestyle section. And I start to look at it, and it is all about Hope Meadows, a full page. And I read it, and I tell you, I got chills all up and down my body, and I just knew that that was where I wanted to be. And so my husband and I were planning that. Yeah, this isn't. I think that's better. Yes? Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. So I was sitting there, and I thought this discovery just couldn't be an accident, and I actually consider it a very divinely guided gift. I turned to my husband. I said, "This is where we're going to go live now." And he says, "Okay." He knows who to listen to. Anyway, so we started making plans. He had a sudden heart attack. He died. I moved to Hope, and I've never looked back. I find it to be one of the most stimulating, nurturing decisions I've made in my life. Before I tell you about the many wonderful experiences I've had and continue to have at Hope, I think you should know that I'm a big believer in miracles. Now, I do have my own definition of a miracle, and to me, that's a miracle is anything that turns out better than you imagined. I feel that I have a miraculous life at Hope. I get a little choked up in my own talk sometimes. It's okay. All right? If you're okay, I'm okay. All right. I'll tell you some stories and about some kids, parents, and seniors at Hope that inspire me on almost a daily basis. So first, I think Matt and I are going to work together here on this slideshow. I think the first is this was a small gathering in my backyard called the Spring Fling. We had cake and punch and coffee and talked, and this is just a small sampling of the group. The woman here in the turquoise top there on the left-hand side, sort of in the middle, we call each other Mr. and Miss at Hope, and the kids do too. And so this is Miss Irene. And I remember the first day I came to Hope, I was so excited. I could barely sleep. We have a guest home that you can rent while you're waiting for your furniture to come, or maybe you're having family come to visit. Anyone can do that. And so I had been staying there for 3 days. And that morning I kind of wandered out, and Miss Irene was out on her porch in a swing, and she was smiling. Miss Irene is 90 years old. She's lived at Hope since it opened its doors. She's a former nun, and she's like still one of my best friends. And what happened is I walked by, and she said, "Are you new here?" I said, "Yeah, I am." She said, "Well, come over here." She had one of those nice little porch swings, and I was kind of like, "Oh boy, this is really better than I imagined." And I sat down, and I said, "I have to tell somebody. I'm just so excited. I walk around, I see the kids, I see what's going on around me. I see you inviting me to come and swing with you. You don't even know who I am. I could have been a complete stranger." She said, "Yeah, it's pretty good." I said, "Good? That's like heaven." She said, "Oh, heaven? No. But maybe right next door." I said, "Okay, Miss Irene, I'll go with that." So she was she's just a very vibrant person. Okay, let's take a look at the next slide now. I think we've got Mr. Bill. Okay, Mr. Bill. Mr. Bill is my neighbor. And as many of you know, Generations of Hope, or now Hope Meadows, was what happened is our founder bought military housing that is 80 units. Are you okay? Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that might be good. That would really help, I think. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Great, Helen. Maybe pull the blinds. Mr. Bill lives right across the street from me. He'll be 80 next year. He's lived there for about 15 years, and he had actually come from the area, and he was a a man who'd been married and widowed and just really didn't like the idea of, living alone with his cat. And so he checked into Hope Meadows. He's been there ever since. This man inspires me so much. In the wintertime, Mr. Bill and one of our other seniors put on their orange vests and they do cross guard work in the snow every morning. He's up at like 6:30 out there. He rides his bike to do this. He also, one day I stopped in where he was doing it, and I just kind of wanted to see what he did with the, the kids crossing. And he knows every child by name. And with our children, what he does is, I guess now in schools they have these cards, like, if you were really good that day, you get a pink card. If you had some problems, you get a red card. Anyway, he asks every child, what was your card today? And they let him know. And he says, well, now tomorrow we're going to go for yellow, right? It seems like a small thing, but I know there were times in my life that if I had had somebody to say even something like that to me, oh my gosh, my day would have been made. I would have done anything to make sure he knew I was working at something good, something right. So that's Mr. Bill. He knows all the kids. Okay, I think the next thing is a couple here. This is one of my best friends. She moved in next door to me with her family a couple years ago. They've now gone into a bigger family unit at Hope. And Terry and Diana are amazing. In their lifetime, and they're now in their late 60s, in their lifetime, they have fostered over 80 children. And they moved to Hope because their 5 adopted children that they have now were teenagers and were going into becoming young adults. We're currently working on some things for more of our young adults aging out of the foster care system or out of adoption or out of their parents' house. Many of our kids are special needs. There are a few of their 5 children that live with them now. They've all graduated from high school. They're all working full time. And with these kids, we're trying to create some kind of a home there where maybe we'll be using interns from the University of Illinois, which is about 20 minutes away, to become like house parents and let these kids start learning the life skills they need to transition. Either they could stay at Hope, and probably many of them will. They've gotten so used to the lifestyle, I don't think they want to change it. But they have 5 special needs young adults right now. Now, to live at Hope, we as seniors give back 6 hours a week of volunteer time. And later, I know there's going to be a Q&A. I brought a number of things like our volunteer sheet. You can look at all the different things you can do. My requirement is 6 hours a week. I mean, I've already done enough for the year because there's so much fun to be had, right? So that includes things like, when you plant things in your garden or you're working with the kids. I'm an artist. I turned my basement into a studio, and the kids come over and do arts and crafts. I participate in the after-school program. But mostly what I've been lately is a taxi service for their kids going back in school, back and forth to their jobs. And I'm thrilled to do it, and it's fun, and it gives me a chance to get to know them on a one-to-one. And I think that's also something that's a real benefit. You can have the kids over to your house. I always ask permission, or they do, of their parents. And that's when you really get to know some of them really well. And they have special needs of being heard on a one-to-one and being listened to and being nurtured. And whatever stage of life they're in, I want to make sure I focus on what's important to them. When I moved there 3 years ago, one of our teenagers was 15. She's now 18. She's been homeschooled. And she was really nervous about getting out there in the real world. And I've just talked with her a lot about life skills, but also constantly planting the seed that, I hope that you're going to college. I really want all of our kids that can to go to college. And so little by little, she resisted a little at first, kind of scared. And then she came over about a month ago and said, I have a surprise, but I can't tell you yet. And so she came over last week and she said, Miss Clarissa, I just enrolled in the community college and I'm going into the nursing track. I want to be an RN. Of course, that thrilled me because that's one of my backgrounds. And so the way that we nurture each child is so completely different. Let's see here. Let's go. So Diana and Terry, yeah. And let's see if there's anything else about them I wanted to tell you. No, that's it. We can move on to the next slide. Oh my gosh, okay. not everything is roses and butterflies, even though she is. Some kids leave. Their families move. There are things that happen that require them to move, or her father was a military man. She lived with her biological father moved into Hope with his new wife. They had 2 children, and this little girl here, we'll call her Karen, she was really something else. She, when I came there the first day, I went to the office, and she was like prancing in, looking pretty much like this. And she just starts talking with me, asking me all kinds of questions. And then she said, "Do you mind if I walk down to your house with you?" I said, "No, not at all." I said, "If you ask your mom, you can, come and sit with me, have some lemonade, and we'll talk." And then she looked downstairs. I gave her a little view of my house, and she noticed I had an art studio. This little girl, at 6 years old, created some of the most amazing things in my art studio, and they were always things to bring joy to other people. For instance, one day she was working on something, and I said, "Well, what's that going to be, Karen?" She said, "Oh, just a minute, I'll show you." And she wrapped this thing around me. It had all these jewels on it and all these feathers and things. And she says, "Okay, now hold still." And she says, "Now start turning." And she pulled this thing. She said, "It's a human spinning machine." I said, "Wow." And then we made some pens. And the one that she made for me was so adorable. And this is what happened. When she was making it, at one point, we had some dancing music on in the background. And I just went to find something, and I turned around. She's jumped up on my freezer and is doing her latest rendition of Katy Perry or somebody. And I just looked at her. I said, "I'm so glad you love to dance." So now we actually have a session when I have 2 or 3 kids over to my art studio. At the end, we share our art together, and they all know I have rules about art, like there's no bad art. You don't have to finish everything you start. They like that. One little girl had a complete meltdown when she didn't finish something one night. She's also a straight A student, which I admire, but I also think it's important for kids to know they don't have to finish everything, whether that's the food on their plate or an art project or anything, and they may come back to it later. And I had to just really comfort her. And I said, Rainice, look around this studio. Is everything finished here? No. I said, "Well, Miss Clarissa doesn't finish things either, and you can come back to this anytime you want. It'll be here for you." Next time she came back, she did something all new. And at the end, I said, "Okay, tell me what was fun tonight and show me your thing." And she showed me just this very simple little thing, but she was so proud. She says, "And guess what? I finished it." And it's like, all right, you can go both ways with these things. So that is Karen, and she has since moved, and it broke my heart. I tell you, I went into a little bit of a depression, had to get help from my girlfriends that live at Hope, and we actually had counselors also. I actually had to get some counseling for myself, which I think is always a good idea. But you will lose people. You will lose people who are seniors. But we celebrate everything at Hope. We celebrate hello parties, goodbye parties. We have adoption parties. And that brings me to our quilting center. We have a complete quilting center. And so many of the women at Hope who are from the Midwest are master quilters. When a new child is brought to Hope with the idea of them being adopted, they come to the quilting center and they pick out a theme. Maybe they want ponies or football. And the quilters work on a handmade quilt. And when that child is adopted, as many of us as can go to the court, and we're there with them. We come back, we have a big party, and they get their quilt, along with a lot of other presents and a lot of love. So that's our quilting circle. Next slide here, Matt, what have we got? Oh, there I am. Okay. This was just a few children at our Christmas party the first year I was there. That's my dog, Bella. She is kind of the dog mascot of Hope Meadows. I have so many offers from the kids to take her walking. It's unbelievable. I'm surprised she's not an Olympic dog or something, the way she is so fit. And then here's some other children who you'll see later in a presentation. These are some of the Gossett children. Hope, when it started, was very big on adopting sibling groups. So we have a lot of sibling groups. These 4 children were adopted by a single mother. All 4 children have the same mother, but they all have different fathers. They're a group of my favorite kids that come over. This summer, The boys have wanted to learn to cook, which I think is a great idea. I tell you, any of you single men, learn cooking. It's really good. It's really a good sales point. Okay, so they have been cooking, and that has been so fun. And I also didn't realize how much math is involved in cooking until I started breaking it down with them. So they've had to learn math skills too. Also this summer, I have a background in entrepreneurial success, and I thought that I would turn my needs into their needs, and so I started a chore club. I have a lot of little things that need done around my place, although a lot of, that's another thing I want to go back to, is there's a lot of things that are done for you in a community that I really appreciate. One is somebody takes care of my snow in the winter. That's part of my rent. Somebody takes care of my mowing in the summer. Part of it's done by volunteers. Some of these women, some of these old farm women I just love, you know, these women in their 80s, and they're out there on those big tractors, and they just got the biggest smile on their face mowing those lawns, and we have a lot of lawn. And also, someone takes out my trash and my recycling for me. Those may seem like small things, but I had 2 major surgeries last year, hip and knee replacement, and it was really so amazing how I was taken care of. People took me to my appointments. My friend Diana went with me to the hospital, stayed the whole time, even though I begged her, go home, it may be fine. No. Made sure that they got me, and they gave me references about different nursing homes to go to rehab. When I got home, I had food. I had people taking my dog out. I mean, it's just a lifestyle that is so nurturing, and I really appreciate that. We actually have a lot of committees at Hope, and one of them is the Caring Circle. So if ever you need a ride to, you know, an appointment or to a class you're taking, a ride to the Amtrak or the bus to go to the airport, we're about 2 hours south of Chicago. It's great. So let's go ahead and, well, there's Belle after a hard day with the kids. And believe me, she's 6, but she acts about 6 weeks old. She gets so much love and attention. I think she's loved out there. Anyway, here's some more pictures. We've got, at Christmas time, we went to the reindeer ranch. We have a reindeer ranch locally, and we go there and we have a cookout. We get to see the reindeers. They have go-karts. We just have a really good time. Down at the bottom here is a little boy who also comes over and does art, and he's so funny. When the kids first started coming to my house, I don't like to use the word rules, because I think when we have to break a few rules, right, or we won't have any fun. And so anyway, I don't like rules, but I do like guidelines for children and adults. And I thought, well, what are the 3 most important things that I would like in my house when people come here, especially the children? So I made up these 3 things, and Caleb in here's got it. You can't read it from back there, but it says to have more fun and success, which I think are 2 really important things in life to teach children about. To have more fun and success, I only ask 3 things: be kind, cooperative, and well-mannered. So all the kids, even my adult friends, I tease them when they're not being one of these. I go, that doesn't sound very kind. And but the kids know those are my 3 guidelines. And if ever that is not what's happening, we stop. And we say, how could you do that in a kinder way? How can we cooperate here? You know, I really expect you to say please and thank you. And when you leave and you've had a good time, you say, thank you, Miss Clarissa. And you know, it sounds like a small thing, but you know, if kids don't have certain manners, it really makes a difference when they grow up. So those are my only 3 things. Okay, we've got a few more slides, I think, here. This is the thing I would really like to emphasize. I think we all stumble. I've made mistakes living at Hope. You know, quite often I thought my ideas were really great, and you know, it took a while for people to kind of trust me and to let me kind of meld into to the community. So we all stumble, every one of us. But I think that that's why it's a comfort to go hand in hand. And I just want to share one last story of a young man in my art studio. This young man, he's 12 now, and in the last 2 years, he's run away 3 times. And he's finally now gotten some counseling and spent some time getting some mental health treatment. But ever since I've known him, when he would come to my house or do art, he'd always have his eyes down. He didn't talk very much, and he was kind of needy, like, well, what do you do with all this stuff? And so little by little, I spent time with him, just on a one-to-one, asking him to come over to walk Bella, or, come over and have some lemonade. It's really hot. We'll sit out on the porch. Or I just felt he needed a lot of one-on-one, and he lives with 3 brothers and sisters. Well, I have to say, it's been amazing. This summer, he spent time in my art studio, and after his last runaway, I walked down to the studio to see what he was doing, and he had pulled out this big wide ribbon, like to make a sash, and he was starting to really be talkative with me, share a lot about what he was doing, definitely made good eye contact, and I looked at this sash, and again, I got chills. It said, "King of my world." That young man is so confident now, so able, so willing to engage. He's completely changed. And I'm not the only one that has had an impact on him. Believe me, every single one of us know about every single one of those kids. And we are all eyes, and we are all ears. And sometimes when we can't do it, somebody else can. So this is my community. This is my other family. I now have a new level of satisfaction and joy I think is unmatched even by any of my careers, businesses, successes, accomplishments, extensive travel, or even having lived in several countries. I am more happy, more satisfied, more joyful. And I think that this other family is what makes me get out of bed every day. And I want to just share one thing here before I close, and that is when we had our first 4th of July picnic, I was in awe. They had the police department out. We know all the people in the community as far as the police and the firemen. And the firemen bring their big fire truck. And the kids get to go up on the top and ride around our little city. And then they come back and they open up the fire hydrants. It's 4th of July. It's very hot there. Open up the fire hydrants and the hoses. And the kids just get drenched. And they love it. And when I started to walk up to it, I noticed that a lot of the people there, I didn't know that we sold t-shirts. A lot of the people there had on these t-shirts. Some say men of hope, women of hope, generations of hope. And then on the back it says, "We are the village." And I say, no, we're not. We all can be the village. And you guys are up to some amazing things here. And I just want to say that having these kids from hard places have a soft place to land is really what it's all about. And I have a quote I really like here I want to share. "The sound of hope is our wings learning to fly. Together, let's soar today. And today, together, let's create a miracle." Thank you.